Bismillah, in this subtopic, we are going to explore the principles of test design. In general, all assessment should have high validity, reliability, fairness, flexibility, and it is professionally collaborated. Now let's explore one by one. Now, assessment should be valid or have high validity, and this refers to in which a test, examination, or any other assessment task measures what it is supposed to measure, that is, the targeted learning outcome. Example, this CLO refers to course learning outcome. So, in a course, in which this is an example of a course of basic psychology. So CLO 1 here says that students should be able to explain basic concepts in psychology. Now here is a mini exercise here for you. Now let's look at the construction of this question here. Now question 1 asks, explain the life of Sigmund Freud as a controversial figure in psychology. Question number 2, it demanded for students to state 5 concepts related to motivation in psychology. And question number 3 asks, elaborate the concept of operant conditioning, is one of the concepts in psychology, with an example. Now the question here is, which one of this question is deemed as having high validity, or it's measuring what it is supposed to measure, which is the CLO of explaining basic concept here. Now let's look at question number 1 here, controversial figure. Question number 1 here is kind of not regarded as basic concept in psychology. Now let's look at the answer here. Now the answer is question 3 is highly regarded as a valid question. I already explained question number 1 here, it's not a basic concept. Question number 2 here only request students to actually state. Okay, so instead of explaining but only state that, so this is under demanding based on the intended learning outcome. Question number 3 is the one that matches what it is intended. So question number 3 is a valid question because it is measuring the CLO, in which whereby in the design, the lecturer intended for the question to measure students' ability to explain basic concepts in psychology. Right, so question number 3 is a more valid question because it is measuring what is supposed to measure, which is to test whether students are able to explain basic concepts in psychology. Now for the second principle is reliability. Reliability refers to the extent to which assessments will provide similar outcomes for candidates with equal competence at different times or places, regardless of assessor experimenting, alright, or assessing, in this particular case there. Right, so this is taken from the guidelines of good practices, assessment of student learning, MQA here. Right, so in short, if I were to put it very shortly, a reliable assessment, is an assessment that consistently provides the same kind of result, assuming that the candidates or the students have similar or equal competence. What do we mean by this? For example, Ali and Aminah are in similar competence level. That means to say that their knowledge, their commitment, more or less are the same. So they are similarly good student. Usually they both will score well in many courses they take. Now, so this is test X. When they took test X, Ali scored 80 and Aminah scored 82. So means to say that the score produced by the test, taken by Ali and Aminah is consistent, quite consistent, as compared to when they took test Y, Ali scored 50 and Aminah scored 92. Now, of course, we may explore there are many factors that may influence this, but let's say we assume that all the personal factors between Ali and Aminah is similar. That means they have similar competence level, they have similar psychological state when taking the test, they have similar, most situation they are similar, but when the only difference is that they take test Y, okay, which is the same, but somehow Ali scored 50 and Amina scored 92. So this here indicating that the test might be unreliable because it doesn't produce consistent result between people who are the same. So supposedly if a assessment is reliable, if Ali and Amina is of the same competence level, probably from other courses or what, test Y, if it is reliable, it should also produce just like test X. So here, it is deemed as test X is much more reliable than test Y. However, of course, we don't want to simply reject test Y. We want to explore what went wrong. Okay, what is actually happening to Ali, because typically Ali, score quite near to Amina. So in short, again, reliability means the consistency of the test producing the result. So here's some of an illustration of, this is an example of a test that is unreliable and invalid. So valid here means to say that it must measure what it's supposed to measure. Okay, it must score the bullseye here. So there's no dots landing at the bullseyes here, so therefore it's invalid or invalid, and it's unreliable because the scores are very scattered around. It doesn't produce consistent result. This in this case here is unreliable but valid. So few of the dots are actually inside the bullseye's circle. It's valid, but it's very inconsistent and therefore unreliable. This one is very reliable. It produces very consistent result, but the question or the intended aim is actually not achieving what it is supposed to measure, right? So you could probably ask in a psychology exam, right? 2 plus 2 is 4, right? So majority of the student might get it correct, but that question of 2 plus 2 is 4 is not supposed to be a question in a psychology exam, for example, right? So it is not intended to measure the supposed learning outcome there. So this is an example of a reliable test but not valid. Okay, and we want both reliable and valid, whereby consistently it gives good consistent result and it is actually valid, bullseyes on. So remember, valid is about measuring what it is supposed to measure, and reliability is about being consistent. Now, the third principle is called fairness, refers to the degree to which the assessment method meets students' rights, responsibilities and expectation. So it's not doing zolim, to the students. The example, in test A, there are 100 MCQ questions to be answered by students in 15 minutes. So this one is an example of a zalim, zalim or injustice. So it's not fair to give students 100 MCQ and give them 15 minutes only. So this is one aspect of unfairness in an assessment. Test B, there are 20 medium difficulty MCQ questions to be answered within 50 minutes. This is at least more reasonable than Test A. So we would regard Test B as having much more higher fairness in Test A. Right, but of course this is just looking at one aspect. There are many other aspects to look for in determining the fairness of an assessment. Inshallah, during our other session, we are going to further take a look at these different cases. Now, the fourth concept is assessment should have flexibility. Refers to a flexible assessment is one that considers the various needs of students who will be assessed. For example, presentation A requires all students to present face-to-face in class right after the mid-semester break. Then suddenly a Sabahan student whose flight was delayed due to a volcanic reaction. Just recently there's one case happening, kind of very fresh, case there. And due to the it is deemed as unsafe, for flights to proceed their flight there. They had to delay there, and it's not the student's fault. It's not the student's fault that their flight is delayed. And this Sabah student was given the flexibility to do the presentation through an online video conferencing medium. Assuming that the Sabahan student had good internet connection at home, right? So if let's say again there's another deeper need whereby the student have not good internet connection at home, then another extended flexibility given to the Sabahan student would be probably when the student is allowed to do it at a later week of the semester. For example, once the student arrives at the campus, for example. So this is what we mean by having flexibility. Of course, this flexibility must be agreed among teaching lecturers, must be agreed and must be notified to the HOD as well. That flexibility should be notified, flexibility should be recorded, so that it's also, you want to balance as well the fairness, because once you give a flexibility to a particular student, you want to make sure that it is known, so that students from other section, when they know that there is this flexibility, they have the right as well to request for it. Okay, so this is very much important, and this is just few of the example of expressing flexibility in assessment. Now, the last one would be the assessment should be professionally collaborated. What does it mean here is that the quality of assessments should be checked by other internal or external academic members. So when a person have developed a particular assessment, then the core principle for this one is that that assessment should be checked by other colleagues. Okay, other qualified colleagues, right? So qualified here means to say that the person must know what are the elements of assessment to be checked off. Okay, so typically we want to look at the course learning outcome, and then a qualified person who knows the constructive alignment, for example, the relationship between the course learning outcome and the questions and the answer scheme. Let's say they know how to check it. Okay, we don't want to have one particular colleague whereby they don't know constructive alignment. They just only know the language, for example, and they only check the language only, which is also part of vetting, but in the process of checking that, we want to check comprehensively as well the constructive alignment, whether it's good or not, okay, whether it's valid, whether it's reliable, whether it's fair, not just the language vetting only, right? So this is the elaboration for the 5 principles of test design.